Mr. Bazhenov, thank you very much for joining us today and will to answer our questions. A few questions for you about PPC, and the first one is, why do you think PPCs are the way forward in your country and specifically in your sector of interest?
Well, we have rather broad sector of interest. In fact, it is all, let's say, regional and municipal development, everything for what government is responsible for, but maybe does not have enough competence for various reasons or enough resources to, let's say, to sustain at the level necessary for its citizens. So in this regard, PPPs is a way to bring expertise of the private sector to where public sector could maybe underinvest in development of competence, but also to bring additional financial resources in order to develop now and maybe to be repaid from the proceeds of economic growth in the future, supported by the government or by the paid services to the population.
Why do you think an international specialist center of excellence in Russian Federation, how can it help your country to move forward in PPC?
Well, in fact, we say, let's say, that we are learning by doing. So in fact, this is what we are doing right now. But we can be doing much more if we can learn in advance. So in this regard, it is extremely important to understand all the peculiarities, problems, bottlenecks which appeared in other countries in specific sectors or in specific ways the PPP process is structured, organized and regulated. So in this regard, what we expect through PPP, through participation in the International PPP Center, we will be able, let's say, to maintain the networking and the exchange of experiences. As well, we can contribute to this international development by providing access to the experience we have in the Russian Federation.
In the first few months of when you start working with PPC, what's the plan? What's the work for this few months?
It's a good question. I think, let's say, at the moment we are very much focused on the first stage of the first stage. So in this regard, to judge longer term, the principal issue is to establish sort of a research plan where we can develop in the area of interest which we have chosen what should be in the toolkit, how to support it by the cases we can find out in the Russian Federation or in other countries, to establish connections with those PPP centers or organizations around the world who have shared interest in the specifics we are talking about, and then based on the, let's say, maybe first 1 year study, to establish very clearly what we have to achieve, let's say, in this specific area of competence. So at the moment it is, I think, planning exercise first.
The specialist center in Russian Federation, how it will connect with other countries' specialist centers?
Well, the general assumption is that we, as a signatory to the International PPP Center, will have to support development of the National Specialist Center. National Specialist Center would be dedicated to one of the specific sectoral or, let's say, procedural or legislative problems of PPPs. I think that we would focus, given that we have experience in Russia, we would focus very much on the issues related to complex regional and urban development, where we could see what is the real economic impact of infrastructure development and how it could be the infrastructure development, if it is done on the private basis, how it could be repaid from the future proceeds of economic growth. So this is the principal problem, which requires clear understanding of the budget procedures, contractual frameworks, the way how to plan for so long and for so many dimensions, and how to coordinate. So in this regard, for our specific area of competence, we will develop our plan and we will share it with the International Center, and then we agree on how to proceed.
Could you tell us, please, how will the specialist center gather the practice?
Could you repeat?
How will the specialist center gather the best practice?
Well, International Center itself, it's an umbrella. It's a roof, if you wish. It's a roof for, let's say, for dedicated, let's say, experts who work for the host government. So, let's say, certain clients in this regard. The only access for the International Center to the best practices to organize a knowledge management process through which the knowledge could be sourced, judged, and somehow processed to, let's say, to the best practice toolkit.
And why do you think UNECE is like a good start for International Center of Excellence?
Well, I wouldn't say that UNECE is the sole actor in the development of this particular knowledge area. On the other hand, what is specific about UNECE is its focus on the best governance practice. So UNECE tries to resolve the issue of PPP development from how the government should manage this process. So it is not about how to contract, it is not how, let's say, to regulate specific economics or specific industry. It is rather what should be in the government, how the government should organize the process, what kind of budget or, let's say, legislation should be put in place, what is the economic model. And in this regard, I think it is more to the, let's say, to the core issue of PPP development, on how to make it PPP. I mean, everybody assumes that PPP is effective somehow, but the problem is the burdens, the barriers for PPP implementation are normally so high that it is not often inaccessible for ordinary programs. So for PPP International Center, the objective is to make it PPP as simple as Kalashnikov rifle.
Okay, and the final question. What is the current view in Russian Federation on the question of PPPs, and is the country ready for wide-scale use and implementation?
I think we already use it on the wide scale, also maybe for some specific problems. The economic situation in Russia changed significantly, although it is changing again. But let's say after the crisis 2008, the Russian Federation does not run, let's say, budget surplus. It is already deficit. In this regard, it definitely senses the need to bring extra resources to maintain development. In this regard, PPP, if it is judged only from this standpoint, it is one of the, let's say, potential mechanisms to respond to the situation. Other issue is that even if we run a surplus, still nothing, not nothing, but many things could not be paid from the budget outright, because once you pay from the budget for construction works, you would generate maybe some extra corruption or some extra delays, less efficiency on the one hand. On the other hand, you could not limit the speed of your development just by what you have in the budget right now. You have to limit the speed of your development with the economic growth that could be achieved. So in this regard, PPP is rather a universal mechanism. It doesn't matter whether you have budget surplus or, let's say, or deficit, but if you wish to maintain certain economic growth, if you have to support this economic growth with infrastructure development, you have to understand the relationship between these two variables, and this is about PPP.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bazhenov.
Thank you.